Hi, I am Susan Lynn Solomon. I'm the author of the Emlyn Good Mysteries series, a group of books that are really kind of cozy mysteries with a sense of humor. And I very happily say that I kill people frequently in Niagara Falls and in and around the county around there. Tonight I'm going to be reading from a new novelette. In fact, it was just released a few weeks ago, called A Shot in the Woods. I thought it's appropriate since we're coming up towards Thanksgiving. And this is A Shot in the Woods is the fourth Emlyn Good novelette that goes along with 3 Emlyn Good novels. Anyway, for the prologue, I'd read of it in the Niagara Gazette a few weeks earlier. A terrible accident. Claire Finch, a 63-year-old former teacher's aide at Niagara Falls High School who had retired to become a collection agent, was walking her dog at the edge of the woods just south of Youngstown. Short, with curly graying hair, and on the far side of Pudgy, a hunter mistook her for a turkey about to flit off and fired his Remington 783. The shot struck Mrs. Finch in the chest. According to the newspaper's account, the hunter, Harold Ryder, found Mrs. Finch when he went looking for his prize. Distraught, he immediately pulled out his cell phone and punched in 911. The EMTs pronounced the woman dead at the site. When they arrived, the police saw Mr. Ryder wringing his hands on the path adjacent to the woods. On the ground next to where the EMTs worked to revive the woman, they noticed a brown jacket decorated with long wool strands. Blood surrounding a hole in the jacket indicated it had been the outer garment worn by the victim. Given what she was wearing, the lead investigating officer told the Gazette, when she bent to pick up her miniature schnauzer, from a distance she must have appeared to be a turkey. Questioned by the Youngstown police, Mr. Ryder said that he didn't know Mrs. Finch or her husband, Jonathan. From the evidence at the scene, the police declared the incident a tragic accident. The Gazette's article went on to say that Mr. Finch had contacted an attorney to consider his legal options. Several pages later on, I read a brief interview the reporter had with Mr. Ryder. In it, he sounded as much a victim as Mrs. Finch. "I'll never get over this," he told the reporter. "I'm going to sell my rifle. I can't even think of ever shooting at another living creature again." Though I'd never met the Finches, when I read of this, my heart broke for their family. I couldn't begin to imagine the pain of losing a loved one to such a senseless accident. Things, though, have a strange way of working out, at least where I'm concerned. Within weeks, I would learn more about this tragedy than I wanted to know. Chapter 1, The Way Things Change. Once my expanded cottage on River Road had but 2 inhabitants, me and Elvira, the hefty albino cat that had adopted me years ago. The Niagara Falls detective Roger Fry, who had been my next-door neighbor, became much more than that and moved in. I hadn't realized he brought with him a rather large family that would swarm into my quiet abode at holiday time. April, Roger's mother, Seth, his brother, who ran a successful data processing company, his uncle Arthur Fry and Aunt May, and his cousins Stuart, George, and Susan, along with their preteen children. An only child and my parents gone, I was entirely unprepared for this flood of family. My lack of preparation became apparent on a Tuesday last year. Battling a deadline, my fingers figuratively raised in the Girl Scout oath, that morning I had sent an email to my agent vowing I would have the next 2 chapters of my novel to the editor by the following week. That's why, still in my plaid pajamas, I sat at my computer with coffee at my elbow and my notes on my lap. I had been parked there since Roger left for the precinct at 7:30 that morning. Lost in the story I promised to work on, I forgot that Thursday loomed, Thanksgiving Day. Thank goodness my friend Rebecca Nurse hadn't forgotten. The phone rang 5 times before I left my desk. I answered it only because it might have been someone calling to tell me Roger had been injured. the fear of anyone who loves a cop. As soon as I lifted the receiver of the phone on my kitchen counter, Rebecca asked, "Did you defrost the turkey?" My brows knitted as if they had no idea what she referred to. I said, "Turkey?" "You're impossible," she told me. "You have a house full of people coming Thursday afternoon. Do you intend to feed them all cat food?" "Oh, yeah, Thursday." I looked up at the clock hung on the soffit over the kitchen sink. 11:15, and I still had pages to write. "Do you know how long a 20-pound turkey takes to defrost? Do you have any idea what to do with it when it does?" "Yeah?" Holding the phone with my shoulder, I turned to look at my computer. The turkey." I heard Rebecca sigh. "Go down to your basement, take it out of the freezer," she said as if speaking to a third grader. "Put it in your sink. I'll be there in an hour." As I hung up the phone, I again glanced at my computer. Drawn by the words spread across the screen, I had sworn an oath to my agent. While my eyes remained on the screen, the words seemed to change to those written by Robert Frost. "I have promises to keep and miles to go." Of course, that could have been the effect of my stray thoughts throwing out a spell. A while ago, Rebecca had warned me a witch's stray thoughts could cause such things to happen. I ought to explain to people I haven't yet met that I am a direct descendant of Sarah Good, a woman accused of practicing witchcraft and hanged in Salem in 1692. The accusations made against old Sarah by a group of malicious girls were, as my British friends would say, spot on. She actually was a witch, and apparently my ancient relative's peculiar proclivity runs in my family's genes. I'd learned of this only a few years ago when doing research for a story I stopped in Rebecca's shop. She owns the Black Cat, an arcane store in Ellicottville about an hour south of my Niagara Falls home. For the past few years, I've been learning about what my heritage means, and Rebecca had taken it upon herself to be my teacher. Now 2 days away from the first feast I needed to prepare for Roger's family, I hoped Rebecca would teach me a spell that would make it a success. My thoughts were pulled from the words on my computer screen to what I would face when the Fry family clan, then from the turkey in the basement freezer. I sighed. An hour later, I heard knocking on my front door. I glanced up from my computer and began to rise from my desk chair. Then the next sentence in the story came to mind, and I sat down. 2 minutes later, I heard knocking on the French door that overlooked my backyard. In the middle of the knocks, I heard an exasperated voice say, "Come on, Emlyn, open your door." The words I was about to type flitted from my mind. Groaning, I stared at the computer. "Emlyn!" Elvira, my overstuffed cat, had been asleep on my wingback chair. At the first knock on the French door, she opened her pink eyes and glared as if to say, "Quiet down, I need my beauty sleep." Startled by Rebecca's shout, I jumped from my chair. When I unlocked the door, she shoved it open and pushed me. Unseasonably warm for late November, she wore no jacket over her loose-fitting maroon floral pants and long ribbed sweater vest. "You're impossible, you know that?" Need I mention that my friend frequently told me this? "Have you done anything since I phoned you?" I looked over my shoulder at my computer. Working hard to keep my verbs active, I had written only 4 paragraphs in the past hour. She turned to me with her hands on her hips. "Anything other than writing, I mean?" I shrugged. "I took the turkey out of the freezer." She leaned toward me. "You really don't want to have everyone here for Thanksgiving, do you?" I do. It's just that I have this deadline, and I promised." Rebecca's long salt and pepper braid flipped from one shoulder to the other when she shook her head. "Don't try to kid a kidder. You've avoided preparing for this for weeks." She latched onto my arm and pulled me to the kitchen. As we passed Elvira, the cat jumped from the wingback chair and followed us. In the doorway, she stopped and glanced around my entirely white kitchen. The dishes from the breakfast I'd made for Roger had been cleaned and put away. The round dinette table was bare. The stove and counters had been neatened. With her eyes narrowed to slits, my cat mewed as if to say, "Hey, I thought there was going to be food in here." Rebecca had quite a different reaction. Heaving an exasperated sigh, she said, "You've done nothing." I pointed to the sink. "I did what you told me to. I brought up the turkey and put it in there. I even started running cold water over it." She groaned. "Wonderful. Try defrosting it this way. It'll take a week." "You're going to give Roger's family turkey ice pops?" "Get me a bucket large enough to sink the bird in." I'm a reasonably good home cook, by which I mean I'm good enough to keep my guy happy. But preparing a meal to please a large family? I'd never done this before, and frankly, I really didn't want to do it now. I felt as though hosting the Fry family's Thanksgiving feast would mean I had finally accepted Roger's proposal. The quicksand that had swallowed my marriage to Kevin Reinhardt had left me loath to wander in that marsh a second time. As to this dinner, in a moment of weakness, Roger had asked me while nibbling on my ear in bed a few weeks ago. I committed to do it. Damn. So here I was in my kitchen, 2 days from the swarm of family, with Rebecca pushing me to get it right. When I had last submerged the turkey in the bucket, she asked, "Did you go online and get the recipe I told you to?" I nodded and pointed to a page folded and tucked under the telephone on the white formica counter. "I found one from Martha Stewart." She unfolded the page and read aloud. "Brine the turkey in coriander seeds, juniper berries, fennel seeds, brown mustard seeds." She looked up at me. "Do you have any of these?" I took the recipe from her hand and examined it. "I have gum mastic, meadow sweeten, some leftover mugwort. Would that do?" My friend's jaw dropped. "Are you trying to give everyone clairvoyant dreams? You want to cook a meal, not cast a spell." Elvira lifted her head from her paws. Her expression seemed to say, "Maybe some hemp in the mix would be fun." Rebecca shot the cat a look. "We also don't want to get everyone stoned." In the past, I've mentioned that the ground floor of my house had an open floor plan. This allowed me to see my desk and computer from my kitchen. Drawn again to the story I'd promised my agent I would work on, I leaned over the counter. "Well, I can shop for those things tomorrow afternoon and..." She pulled me back. "You'll shop for them today. Didn't you read that recipe? You have to brine the turkey for at least 24 hours. That means it'll be tomorrow night before it's ready to cook." With a sigh, she added, "I'm glad I read my tarot cards this morning. The Four of Cups under the Queen of Celtic in the Celtic cross, and the King of Cups to the left and a sword to the right." I stared at her. "It means if I hadn't gotten here when I did, Roger would have had to arrest you for murdering his family."
Wonderful. Thank you.